I think it's a mistake to assume that everything's hunky-dory. And, and when stock markets are up, it's kind of like this little drug we all feel. Like, it's just great, But remember, we've had so much fiscal and monetary stimulation. So I'm a little more on the cautious side, that we are facing a lot of things in 24 or 25. And we mentioned Ukraine, the terrorist activity in Israel, the Red Sea, quantitative tightening, which I still question if we understand exactly how that works. I don't think we do. How QE actually worked, what the effect of negative, zero rates was for all this time. And obviously the politics, and then the Ukrainian war is affecting oil, gas, food, migration. So you have all these very powerful forces that are going to be affecting us in 24 and 25.
You won't believe what this report from the World Economic Forum is telling us. But before I even discuss it, there's a few things that I need you to do. You know your outlook when it comes to, the cost of goods nowadays, whether it's in Costco, Kroger, Walmart, Target, Aldi's, and pretty much any other store that sells your needs, right? Forget about it right now. If you think that the cost of goods are high, forget all about that as well. Even if you see experts telling you on national TV that things are really bad for the economy, you shouldn't believe it. That is, if you believe the WEF.
3.4% inflation at the consumer level. What does that tell you about the state of the economy?
Well, that inflation's not going away. We're getting the nightmare landing. We're going to grow in the first half at about 1%. And we're going to have basically core inflation at 4%. Chairman Powell likes to look at services because that's where wages really push. And we've been hearing about how shelter's going to come down and save us. If you take energy and shelter out of services, inflation is 4%. That's not 2%. That's double what you want. If this is a soft landing, well, I don't know how landing without wheels is a soft landing, because that's what this feels like.
So if it's not a soft landing, what is it? A recession?
A failure.
Is it a recession?
Failure. No, I don't think so. I don't think we're looking at a recession, but the Fed's got very little wiggle room to cut interest rates. It really can't at all.
But these are the experts, right? Why don't we ask Americans about how they feel about the economy? Because if you ask the majority of the American people about what's going on, they talk about the price of goods, gas, electricity, rent, all these different things that normal folks pay for, The
thing about it is, I think since the pandemic and post-pandemic, people have been experiencing this economy in drastically different ways. Some people lost their jobs. Some people stayed home and they just sort of banked all that money and they have tremendous savings now. So this, in a way, does not surprise me. What are people saying about why they think the economy is struggling, even though all signs point to the economy being quite strong?
Well, we're talking about the big picture, what they call the macro, but then the personal. Mm-hmm. And here in the polling, we're talking more about the personal. Now, there's a word that I want to add to that word used at the top, which is struggling, and that is this one, uncertain, that a majority of people also used. And that really stood out to me because all along, since the pandemic, as you described it, we've been getting these signals. Is it going into a recession? Is it getting better, right? Mm-hmm. So you can't blame people if they think, well, okay, well, this is what they're saying this time, yeah. But right now we're feeling uncertain. And then the other really big part of that is we're talking about, on the macro level, the rate of inflation may be slowing, okay?
Right.
But that doesn't mean that prices aren't already high.
Right.
And that's what people are feeling, what's really in front of them, right? At the gas pump, at the cash register. So people still think prices are going up, maybe not as fast as they were. And then this one, which is kind of the ending and the really important wrap-up point, 70% of people saying that their take-home pay isn't keeping pace with inflation.
Now, we can talk about politics and all that, and who's to blame, but that's not really what we're here to do, all right? The fact of the matter is that we're in no man's land right now. We are literally seeing historic prices compared to wages, but if you ask the World Economic Forum, all of us are just dead wrong. Man, isn't it amazing that they're now telling us what a bad economy is compared to a good one? Because billionaires can really relate to everyday average problems, Now, I'm pretty sure they're also worried about food, gas, rent, mortgages, car payments, all those things, just like everyday Americans. I'm sorry for the sarcasm, guys, but some of the stuff that just comes out of Davos, they're just laughable. But look at what they have here. So it's a report that calls for a new approach to economic growth, right? Now, from those terms itself, what do you understand? Well, if you ask me, it seems as if they want to alter how economic growth is gauged. staged. They're saying that these things should be looked at more. They're telling us that if we looked at innovativeness, inclusiveness, sustainability, and resilience, then things are just fine. That is, if we believed and based it off of the framework that they made. And this is what they wanted us to look at. And I'm going to show you guys something here regarding this framework and its aim. All right, so it says here that the framework aims to contribute to a paradigm shift in assessing economic growth. Now, you could say that they're just talking about this huge change, but that's not the case here. A paradigm shift is to literally change the basic concepts and experimental practices of a scientific discipline. In other words, they want to change the math. I mean, do they think that we're just completely stupid or something? Because what is it with changing the definitions of terms nowadays? Like if it doesn't match their narrative, oh, it just goes out the window. They're also saying that this new framework that they've been talking about is a holistic look at GDP alongside the quality of growth across 107 different economies. So they want us to look at things as a whole, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? But it kind of negates the important factors that normal people are going to look at, right? I mean, like, do any of you guys think of these factors whenever you go out to the gas pump? And I'm being serious here. Do you actually stop and think about innovation, inclusivity, sustainability, and resilience? No, normal people don't go thinking about that. They just look at the price of gas and they go. But that's not what the WEF wants. They want to change how you look at the economy as well. Right here, it says this. So together with this report is their 2-year plan. So what's the goal? To have a new narrative for economic growth. Can you believe that? However, they still admitted that the economy has slowed down. I don't think that they can avoid that at all with everything that's happened, right? But I want to ask you guys, are you okay with the WEF doing this? Did any of them ask you to change how we perceive the GDP or the economy? Now, some say that it feels like an insult to the working class American, and the same could be said for workers across the globe. But what do you guys think about this? Do you believe that these factors are that important when it comes to the global market? Or are they just trying to manipulate like whatever number that they can to try and make us believe that things are actually getting better when they're not?
Steve created those 2023 charts we showed you as part of the year in review for the New York Times. So great charts. We've borrowed them from you, Steve. But give us a sense of going forward. You had the ones that defined 2023. Let's talk about what it looks like from your point of view in 2024. Let's start with the first one you had, inflation and rates. Right now, there's a lot of higher rates. Inflation seems to be coming out down just in the United States as well as around the world.
Inflation has definitely done better than any of us thought. The economy has remained stronger, even in the context of a low unemployment rate and inflation coming down. I think it's important to note, as Larry Summers has done repeatedly on your program, that for all of the celebration, we're not at 2% yet. Wage growth is still running at around 4%. If you assume 1 or even 1.5% productivity, it implies an underlying rate of inflation of around 3, which is what core inflation is roughly running at. So the question is, does it get to 2? I don't believe the Fed is going to raise interest rates again unless something really untoward happens. But I think it would be really hard for Powell to start cutting rates with inflation not yet even at its target.
Well, all I know is that I'm going to be on the lookout for anything else that they may try to pass under the radar. I'm going to keep you guys informed and updated. But before I go, I just want to thank you guys for hanging out. Thanks for liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And I'll see you on the next one.